Buenas tardes y muchas gracias. Señora moderadora, profesora Arker, profesor Arber, doctor Simón, Excelencia, Monseñor Marcelo Sánchez Orondo, excelentísimas señoras y señores aquí presentes. Es para mí un privilegio poder estar en esta tarde y hablarles a ustedes de algo eminentemente práctico. Mi conferencia va a ser en inglés por una única razón. Como profesor universitario tiendo a hablar demasiado y quiero mostrarles todo el proceso, de tal manera que hablando en inglés hablo menos. Hablaré, por lo tanto, en inglés, si me lo permiten. Okay, I'm going to deal with what we call the DNA Pro Kids program. I hope it works.
Audio is not, the translation is not coming through. Technical problem.
Okay, should I wait then?
Just 1 minute. It was working.
I can speak German. Would everybody understand? Okay, I mean, but yeah, there's some problem because this is not working either.
Just press it a little longer. Just put your finger down. The left one. Left. The other one. Other one.
Yeah, but
Down and just hold it for. Yeah.
okay, it works.
It needs.
Okay, is it working? The translation now?
Sí, la traducción también.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. Okay. Okay. So there is something that we are working to try to fight and deter human trafficking, and very specifically children trafficking in the field, in the countries of origin, which is a program that we call DNA Pro Kids. DNA, it's the use of DNA and Pro Kids. The word kids stands for the initials, the acronym. It stands for Kids Identification with DNA Systems. So it could be used in both senses. This was started by the University of Granada back in the year 2004. And we started with to run some pilot programs in Guatemala and also in the Philippines, in Mexico. And later on in the year 2009, we got the support from the University of North Texas Health Sciences Center. So although we are running that from Spain, we have to acknowledge then the University of North Texas, UNT, for their support, basically to analyze the DNA samples that we get from the different countries. Okay, a lot of things that I should be explaining here has been already mentioned and explained, so I don't need to go into, but this is the rationale, this is the logic of my presentation. How is this problem important? What can we do? How to do it? If we have any results using the DNA technology, and what is next, or what would be or should be next? And how significant or how important, we know all the data. We know that global trafficking, after the excellent presentation of Professor Marcelo Suárez Orozco, we know more than ever about that. This is a worldwide epidemic. It's a pandemic, therefore. The UNODC and created a program called UN Gift just to fight human trafficking and very specifically children trafficking. It is an estimation of 1.2 million children that are trafficked every year. We can argue about this more or less than that, but anyway, it's a huge figure. It's a large number of children trafficked. We use, and this is a mistake, we tend to think, especially from the ones living in Europe, in North America, in other areas in the world, that this is a problem that basically originates in countries that are in development right now, and that we're kind of safe, we would be in the green area, but this is not true at all. We know more than ever, and we have more than enough data to know that this is a whole problem that happens everywhere, anywhere in the world at any given time. This is a pandemic. This is a problem that it's permanent and it's affecting all the world. Children that are lost, for instance, these children here for 50 euros to fish, or children that are just missing. And missing for what? For forced labor, for sexual abuse, for sexual industry, for whatever, begging, illegal adoptions. It depends pretty much on the age. Okay, what to do? Well, there are many, many things to do, and we've been discussing about them during these 2 days very intensively. Among other things to do is to try to fight this problem from the very beginning in the places where it originates and with all the tools that we have available. The children as victims, basically, if they are newborn or babies under 2-3 years old, most of them end up, not all of them, end up in illegal adoptions. As they get older, of course, they could be given for illegal adoption, but it's also all kind of exploitation, labor, sex, begging for crime. I mean, to have these children involved in crimes, soldiers, etc. So this is a problem. And what facilitates this? Why is easy to traffic a child? First of all, because of the lack of an appropriate identification. And second, because it is difficult, if not impossible, to track, to find out their origin. And this is the point where the DNA technology could help, could support all the efforts that are being done around the world. What to do? Among many other things, again, first of all, to make life difficult to criminals, to have children identified as much as we can, to avoid to use them as merchandise, as an object that can be moved from here to there because nobody knows who they are. And of course, children cannot tell us who they are, especially very young children or children that were missed, were stolen when they were very young. The second thing that we have to do, is use all the available technologies. Any kind of technology that could be proved as useful should be put in place as soon as possible. And third, set the basis for future strategies. With all what we know and all what we are going to learn along the next few months, years, in meetings like this, we have to set the basis for future strategies that could combat this terrible crime, this heinous crime, more effectively. Okay? What are we doing with DNA ProKit? This is very important, please, to understand what we are doing. We are supporting different countries around the world. I'll show you which countries, to create their own databases. We are not running a global database from Spain or from the US. We are helping Guatemala, Mexico, El Salvador, some areas in Peru, Bolivia, Nepal, the Philippines, Thailand, to create their database. What is in this database? Very easy, as in all databases must have two parts to compare. One is what we call the question database, okay? Which DNA from unidentified children who we do not know who they are, okay? And nobody knows who they are, and they cannot tell us in a reliable way who they are. And on the second part, we have a reference database with DNA from relatives of missing children. Of course, the reference database has to be a voluntary, with informed consent database. And this is a must because of the ethics and the laws in most of the countries, always because of the ethically speaking. Unless you're prosecuting a crime, then you could get some forced DNA sample. And in the cases of the question database, whenever we get DNA to be analyzed from children, there has to be with a consent of the legal tutor of the children, who could be the prosecutor or whoever, depending on the countries. There is always one person who is in charge of defending the rights of these children. So you generate these two databases and then you compare results. And of course, what we pretend to do, and we are doing, because I'll show you cases and examples. First of all, to ensure the mother and child identifications. When I mean mother, I mean a relative. The mother is the best relative to identify one person, because we do share a lot of DNA with our mother, more than with our father, okay? Because we share the mitochondrial DNA and the X chromosome and the autosomal DNA. So ensure mother or any other relative and child identification, to reunite children with their families, which happens in most of the cases. There are cases that we have already had, it has been reported to us, where a child was identified, so now we know who is this child, but was not sent back to his or her family. Why? Because usually there are few cases, but these are families with a lot of problems because of drugs or crime or whatever. So it is not the best place for the child to be with his or her biological family. But again, at least we know who is the child, okay? Then, and second, very important in many situations and in many countries, for adoptions, to check, to double check, to make sure that the person who is giving the child for adoption is the biological mother or father or any other relatives. Children are stolen and given to a woman that claims that she is the mother and she has no money to support the baby and wants a better life for him or her and gives for adoption. And then after that, they get either some money because it's allowed to get some money because it's not the money because she's selling the baby. It's the money because she's so poor and has so many other babies that with this money I could raise the other children that I have at home. Or this is just a criminal system because there are a lot of people in agencies working around these adoptions, and then what they want to have is business. They have to have children given for adoption because they charge money to all the people coming to adopt children. The second part is to facilitate the international cooperation. We know that this is in big countries, even in small countries, this could be a local problem, a national problem, but in many cases, children are moved from one country to another one, so we have to be able to compare the results in the databases. And third of all, we would like to be able to but not we, I mean, we have to think about that and propose to the ones that can do that, to pass laws to request genetic identification in cases of special risk for children, okay, like in cases of wars, forced migration, or in every single case of adoption. How are we doing this? How to do it? That's the way we're doing. Well, but what are we doing basically from the University of Granada with the support of the University of North Texas? We have made kits like this one. We have sent this kind of kits by thousands of them to the different countries who are participating in DNA per kits. We identify one country with one problem, and then we go and talk to the authorities in this country. Police, Department of Justice, Department of Interior, General Attorney, depending on the countries. There are different institutions dealing with this problem or being in charge of the investigation of missing children and identifying the children. So we talk to them and we tell them, okay, we know how to do this. We know how to set this database. We can help you by sending you the kits. We can help you by performing the DNA analysis. We will report the results to you. This is your database. We can train your people. We can do whatever you want, but you have to do that. Okay? This is national database for every single country because you have the problem here. So with these kits, basically what is inside the kits, it's, as you can see here, this is it doesn't move, but this part in the center is a swab. In this swab you can place in this white area, I cannot point from here, but anyway, in the central area, white area, close to where it is written Bode, which is the trademark, you can either place a blood stain, a stain of blood, just very small blood stain, and can keep at room temperature, or you can introduce this inside the mouth and get epithelial cells from inside the mouth. Most of the people call that saliva cells, okay, or saliva sample. It's okay, I mean, we're not going to argue about the name. And you can keep at room temperature. This is very important because it can stay for a long time. You don't need to freeze or to keep it cool, which would be very much more expensive and sometimes even impossible, okay? So you put this, and then the other very important part in this kit is this card where you either write in the top part, there are two parts. The top one is to fill up with data from the child when you collect a sample from a child. The part below is to get data from a family reference, from a relative of a missing child. That we always try to look for the mother, but if not the mother, the father, and any other relatives. The more relatives we have, the better, because it will be easier to get the correct answer after the genetic analysis. So You have this in place. You collect the samples, again, voluntarily from the relatives and with the proper authorization, mandate from the tutors of the children, and you do the analysis, create your own database, and start to compare. And of course, you have results. Of course, that what we also do is try to support some countries, and this is an example of, for instance, Dr. Jorge Cabrera will be talking about that a little bit later on from Guatemala. This is a system to, this is a program which is a software to compare, to automatically compare DNA results and try to identify mother-child, father-child, parental grandfather, grandchildren, etc. It makes all kind of combination. We try to offer that either for free to countries really involved, or we try to get the best price that we can from the manufacturer, which is, in this particular case, a US based one, okay? Any results so far? Well, yes, thanks God we have results, including all the 16 different countries that are working. They have collected more than 9,200 samples. I would say that 5,000 of them are coming from children and 4,000 from relatives of missing children. We have more than 630 positive identifications. It means children that were linked to their parents or grandparents or brothers and sisters or whoever is a relative looking for the missing child. We have more than 290 what we call negative identification. It happens sometimes a baby is lost, and it's very important, especially when the baby is a newborn, a very few days or months old baby is lost. Then families go and look for the baby, and they go to places where they keep babies that has been found out in the streets, orphanages or these kind of places. And then they try to identify the baby just looking at him or her. And many times say, yeah, this is my baby. I know, I am sure this. And then you do DNA analysis, it's not the baby. Of course, they are not lying. They don't pretend to get the wrong baby. They don't, but they try to, I mean, the anxiety that they have, the psychological problems that they have because of the missing child is that much that they make wrong identifications. It happens the opposite when a person is dead and the family goes to recognize the remains or the cadaver of the person. They try to deny that, no, this is not my whatever, and it is, okay? And we could detect more than 287, in this particular case, illegal adoptions. It means that a woman, is usually a woman. We have a few cases with males, with men, but usually a woman that claims that she's the mother and is going to give the child for adoption, and there is some suspect that she's not the biological mother, so she's not the real mother. We do the DNA analysis and find out that, of course, she's not the mother. I always say more than X samples in all cases, as you see. It's not any other sign. It's not a dash or a dot. More than because this data, I get the data from the different countries working in this field, okay? So I ask them by the end of every month, automatically, to please update me with all the data that they have, what they've been doing for the last few weeks. That's why I say more than that. It is not a pro-kids achievement, but we were working very hard to have, and I will talk about that later, although Dr. Cabrera will do, one country, which is Guatemala, that passed a law, a very specific law, acknowledging the right of the people, of the children, to have a DNA analysis to be identified. Cases solved. Yeah, there are cases from Guatemala. I cannot point, and you will not be able to see, but this was one of the most important cases at the very beginning when we started to work in Guatemala in 2007, where 46 kids were found at an alleged illegal adoption center, and where kids is written somewhere in the middle. You cannot see, I cannot either, but I know that it's written children in age from a few days to 3 years old. This was a completely illegal place. They had all these children there, and they were waiting for people who wanted to adopt children to go there and choose the one that they liked more. Okay, this is terrible. This case was a spectacular one. Just after the quake, the earthquake in Haiti in January 2010, 25 children were arrived at the airport in Santa Cruz. Is the largest city in Bolivia. The capital is La Paz, but Santa Cruz is a big city. These 25 children, the Haitian children, this is a picture of them in the bus, arrived by plane in a flight with 5 adults. And the explanation from the adults, they were claiming that they were the tutors of the children. And they were saying, well, you know that a few weeks ago we had an earthquake in Haiti, and these children are stressed. We're going to give them a tour through Latin America to, you know, this ridiculous explanation was given to the police in Bolivia. Of course, the police didn't trust, didn't buy that lie. And they have all documents, perfectly faked passports. But they were victims of trafficking. After identifying a number of them, the criminals, the traffickers, acknowledged that 20 of the children out of the 25 were going to end up in certain areas in Brazil. Probably they didn't know at that time, and they didn't follow the investigation, but probably for sexual exploitation or any kind of related. And 5 of them were going to end up in Argentina, probably, most likely, or that this is what they said at the very beginning, for illegal adoptions, okay? So, thanks God, we had started a few months ago, in November 2009, the DNA Pro Kids Bolivia. They immediately took samples to the children. They immediately got samples through the International Red Cross from Haiti, from an area, from a camp where 70 children had been stolen a few days before, and they matched it, and automatically 13 of these Haitian children were identified. And they were soon, after all the paperwork, returned to their families. After that, there are 5 more children identified, so a total of 18, and the other 7 children have now a Bolivian nationality and have been adopted by Bolivian families. Okay, Thailand, in many, Peru, we've been working in India. And I wanted to show this because this is, you all know this, but this links me to the explanation that our colonel was giving this morning. The problems that we have in the border in Spain, because of it's so close to Africa, and Spain, because of the Schengen Treaty, it's part of the European Union. So once you are in Spain, you can go all the way up to whatever, of course, to here. And you can go to Germany, to Norway, to Denmark, and no borders. And people try to come here. And I'll show you this. You see this red triangle in that area. This is where the city of Granada is, in the south, I don't know if you see it, sorry, I cannot point. But from there, we have a huge mountains, very tall ones, where we can ski during the winter. So in a few weeks, we will have a lot of snow. This is me and my daughter skiing in that particular area. Yes, it is me. Some of you say, no, it's not you. Yes, I love skiing, it is me. Okay, well, from that particular point, if you look in the direction of the arrow, so it's a northwest, west a little bit to the north, so probably direction to 300 in aeronautical terms. What you see from the top of the mountain is the city of Granada. You see down there? This is the city of Granada. But if you look to the south, what you see is the coast of Africa. This is a picture of my daughter skiing, the younger one. And the bright part is the ocean, it's Mediterranean, and the dark area inside is already Africa. You can see it from there. Same way you can see, they can see us. They can look and see the lights from Spain, from Europe, from a place for a better life. And they try to come, as our colonel Barreiro was explaining, how they try to come using this small boat. I want to mention, you see the picture of the Guardia Civil, the green guys on top of there. Anywhere in Spain where you need support and help, you will find the Guardia Civil, in the roads, in the highways, in the mountains, in the ocean. They're always to help. That's why it's the most evaluated and acknowledged institution in Spain. And okay, well, what we have found out is that sometimes, and recently, especially very recently, a lot of young women were coming with children. That, of course, they were their children. But the Guardia Civil and the police started to suspect that this could be not the case. This could be a situation of human trafficking. And we started to perform DNA analysis to all those cases where there was something suspicious, where there was a suspect that it was not the mother. Sometimes a woman came with 2 children of a very, very similar age. And she was saying, no, they're both my children. No, they're both, this is the old one, for instance, 2 years old, and this is the other one, 1 year old. And both children were 1.5 years old, as calculated by the pediatricians. So we started to do, we made an agreement with the government of the city of Melilla, which is a city right in the circle, Spanish city in northern Africa. And what happened is that, this is when we signed the agreement, and what happened is that we have so far analyzed 18 cases. In 12 of those cases, there was a positive answer. I mean, positive result, which means that, yes, the mother is the biological mother. In 6 other is a negative, wasn't the biological mother. Could be a mother that has adopted or taken an abandoned child years ago or months ago, could be the case, but the suspects from the police is not our work. But the police, the Guardia Civil, because of their investigations, they really tend to think that these are basically cases of children trafficking into the European Union. So we're trying to stop it in there. For future activities, well, this is the main challenges that we all, it's not we in Granada, we all should have. Of course, from the DNA Pro Kids perspective, we have to increase the number of countries involved, especially in strategic regions, in those regions where we know there is a lot of children trafficking. Increase the size of the databases in the countries where we are working, in collaboration with all kinds of NGOs related to the area, in cooperation with the relatives of missing children that usually get the information through the media, through the doctors, through the teachers, through the religious organizations that are working in the field, and many of them are represented here through many of you. We have to increase the international cooperation with coordination, and we have to try to help to pass laws at the national and international levels to try to track and stop this as much as we can. This is something for Dr. Jorge Cabrera, a very good friend, to deal with, but I must acknowledge, and this is something to congratulate Guatemala. In Guatemala, they found a big problem with illegal adoptions, but they took the action. And they passed a law, which is called on September the 13th, 2010, it's called the Alba Kenneth Law. And the Alba Kenneth Law is an alert law. It's like the Amber Alert that we have here in Europe. But in this law, in the article, the point number 13, is the first and, as far as I know, only law in the world that mandates the state, in this case of Guatemala, to do DNA analysis. This is written in this red square that you can see. Mandates the government to perform DNA analysis of all unidentified children that are under the protection of the authorities, in orphanages, in whatever. If the child is not identified, if we do not know who or he or she is, we have to have a DNA analyzed. And on the other side, gives the right to the relatives of all missing children to have their DNA analyzed, everything, of course, for free. And this is the way, this is what the DNA Pro Kids is. And this is the way to ensure that because sometimes the child is held in an orphanage in one of these houses for a couple of years and then is given for adoption. And you have the family looking for him or her, but there is no way to link the children back to their families. So this is a way that it is working. We have a lot of information in our webpage. And regarding or related to coordination, collaboration, and cooperation, we know that crime, and Gustavo made a very good presentation yesterday. This is always the same. This is the same tracks where different trains run depending on with drugs, with person, with children, with arms. This is organized crime all over the world, and we have to fight them with collaboration. We cannot have the criminals using our own world to hide. because this is something ridiculous from all perspective. This is the countries that are involved in red dot countries working. If you see in Mexico, for instance, Mexico is a federal country, it's like the United States. So there are, in Mexico, 32 states. We have to deal not only at the federal level, but on the state level. That's why there are so many red dots in Mexico. But then we have a number of countries in Central America. We have Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Brazil. One state in Brazil, actually Paraíba, here that they have Brazilian friends. And then in Asia, we have involved Nepal, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and countries that want to get involved in the future. Again, we give them all our knowledge, the know-how. We give them the kits to collect the samples. We analyze the samples for them if necessary. We send them the results back. Their database is their database. Well, we want this to be used because it can be used, and it's very important. Okay, this is a picture of the visits to our web page. If we take the map off, you can see always the map of the world. Basically, a lot of visits coming from the US and from the Americas, a lot of them in Europe, very few in Africa. We are not working at all yet in Africa. We didn't find the right authorities to work. We don't have the time. We don't even have the budget if we want to concentrate in other countries, but we have to do that. A lot of other visits in Asia, you can see perfectly there, the India and parts of China and all the Southeast Asia, okay? Now with the collaboration of the Spanish government that has been supporting this from the very beginning, we are trying to organize at the University of Granada a meeting during the spring of 2014. I will send, the information will be available in our webpage, but I will send to Monsignor Marcelo all the information, and you will be able to get through the webpage of the Academy, most likely, of countries involved in DNA Pro Kids, but not only of countries, of people that want to work, trying to implement, trying to establish this kind of activities in different countries in the world. And I want to finish, because I'm running out of time, although I have a 1.5 extra minutes, I know, because we have more than a mandate. It's a request by the Holy Father, Pope Franciscus, that was written to Monsignor Marcelo in last May. And the mandate of the Pope is that he knows that people who are victims of trafficking are wasting their lives. And we have only one life. November the 2nd, 2013 is over for all of us because it was yesterday. We have one less day. These people are wasting their lives. The families are suffering, not only children, adult trafficking as well. I'm sure that Pope Marcelo, what he found out is that we have to have hope. And hope has one way, our life. And the light cannot be in red. We have to work all together to have all people's lives in green moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. Can I abuse the being in the chair to ask you a question, very quick one? You have dwelt upon theft of children and doing great work in this area, but I presume this technique would work in the same way for the theft of organs. You could identify by DNA from whom the organ came.
Yes.
And whether they were authorized hospital personnel or whatever to...
Exactly the same way, without abusing the use of the technologies, because there are legal and ethical issues and quality issues and all. Yes, it would be just a matter of generating a database where you have to prove where your organ is coming from. And it was donated in a country, in a hospital that is authorized, and it was given with the proper consent and with the following all the legal procedures. And yes, it can be used. We are working to generate a program to track basically the kidney transplant, because we have found out and proved that getting cells from the urine of one person who has been transplanted, who has a kidney coming from a donor, the DNA that you find in the cells that are found in the urine, a number of them, 50% of them, are coming from the kidney. Okay, so it's coming from the donor, and the other 50% are coming from DNA from the person who is the receptor. Yes, it could be used, and most likely will be used in a given time. Of course, it's a way to track, or at least to find out, because to falsify any kind of document or paper, or it's unfortunately so easy that we have to try to use the technology and the science. This would be a topic for another meeting, because it's very interesting, and but it would work, yeah, for sure.
Sí, profesor Lorente. Yo tengo una pregunta y es la antigüedad que tiene este banco de datos. La pregunta tiene que ver porque en Argentina tenemos experiencia en estos bancos de datos en función de que hemos rescatado niños, hoy ya adultos, a raíz de la apropiación que hicieron ilegítimamente en la época de la dictadura militar. Y esto, la antigüedad del banco de datos es importante porque si esto se transforma en un delito de lesa humanidad y es imprescriptible, podemos restituir a la familia biológica niños apropiados hace más de 30 o 40 años. Es importante saber la antigüedad de este banco de datos y cómo lo están conservando.
Bien, la antigüedad del banco de datos depende de... O sea, el banco de datos, el país en el que primero comenzamos a trabajar fue Guatemala, en el año 2004. Entonces hay datos desde 2004. La antigüedad que puede tener hacia el futuro el banco de datos dependerá de la legislación que cada país tenga. Y de hecho, en los bancos de datos de tipo de identificación de personas desaparecidas o de tipo criminal que hay en todo el mundo, incluida en diferentes países de Europa, cada país, por ejemplo, en Europa, legisla de una manera diferente. Yo, y justamente por lo que usted ha dicho, sería partidario de no solo a efectos de identificación, sino a efectos de poder perseguir el crimen en el futuro, de mantenerlos, mientras no haya una petición exclusiva por una parte interesada de quitar esos datos, pero sería partidario de mantenerlos pues, todo el tiempo que la legalidad de cada país permita, porque ayudaría en el futuro a la solución de esos casos. Gracias.
Sí, estoy muy orgulloso de que un colega de mi país haya hecho una exposición tan clara. Me gustaría preguntarte dos cosas. Una, la fiabilidad del kit. Hoy sabemos que hay fiabilidades muy buenas para kits de adenovirus, de alergia, de herpes y quizá algún otro. La fiabilidad, si lo sometéis en caso de positivo a alguna otra prueba y si los jueces os aceptan la prueba.
Sí, son preguntas, José María, doctor Simón, muy interesantes. La fiabilidad de un análisis de identificación genética que esté bien hecho por un laboratorio que sepa hacerlo es muy alta. Es decir, toda actuación humana tiene un margen de error, pero la fiabilidad es realmente muy alta, supera el 99.9999%. Todas las pruebas se hacen siempre por duplicado, ¿vale? De tal manera que los resultados hay que replicarlos. Esta obsesión con la calidad, y hay otra parte muy importante en estas muestras, lo que se llama la cadena de custodia, con que las tomen las personas apropiadas y que luego tengan una validez judicial en el país de origen. Por eso tenemos la obligación de trabajar con las autoridades de todos los países. Y hay algunos países que no son especialmente colaboradores. Hay personas que sí dentro de un país, dentro de un ministerio, pero luego hay otras que lo entorpecen todo lo que pueden. Pero tenemos que hacerlo con ellos para que tenga validez jurídica. Algunas veces hemos trabajado con organizaciones, con ONGs, NGOs, de diferentes países que nos han mandado muestras puntuales. Pero es que ellos no pueden generar un banco de datos porque necesita una autorización especial. Tú no puedes tener datos de una especial sensibilidad desde el punto de vista... Entonces, esto hace que vayamos más lentos de lo que pudiésemos ir. Y es justamente la obsesión con la calidad y con la trazabilidad. Pero conforme se va implementando, por ejemplo, Guatemala, ahora nos contará Jorge, lo tienen totalmente autorizado, no autorizado, por supuesto está autorizado, lo que él tiene es totalmente estandarizado, de tal manera que allí es muy fácil hacer las cosas. Eso es lo que poco a poco hay que hacer, pero lo bonito es que se puede hacer y que funciona. Gracias.